When I came to this country at the airport, they gave me a green card because I was not she was an immigrant. I was not. I escaped from that country.
Really? What year was that?
Tell more about
69.
your way.
So they, 68 actually, 68.
In 68, when we Russian invaded Czechoslovakia.
So in August of 68, Russian, Soviets, tanks came to my country because we had something that was giving us something, it was freedom all of a sudden. Overnight, we had a party leader. Party leader was the god. President was nobody, a puppet. So we had appointed a communist party leader by name of Dubček, who decided to implement socialism with a human face. Russians didn't like that. So within few months, all of a sudden, he allowed something that was prohibited, gathering on corners. So people all of a sudden started talking freely on corners, talking. I mean, that was such a relief. So they called that the Prague Spring. And by August of the same year, Brezhnev decided, no, this is not going to work. Tanks came in.
In 68.
And it was squashed, brutally squashed.
I remember that.
I remember that I was in the army, in Prague actually. So I saw people being shot, killed. They were marauding through Prague, and tanks were shooting at anything, and just to show that there was a counter-revolution. The early wave of Russian soldiers was removed immediately because they were told that it's counter-revolution. That's a big term, counter-revolution. Oh, you with us or you against us, something like that. So the first wave of soldiers was removed, and the next wave came, and I said, look, all the shooting, you see that? But they were doing the shooting, we didn't do anything. Because the moment they crossed the border from all directions, I was in the army. They told us to remove our uniforms, hats, belts, everything. And you are no longer an army.
Who told you that?
Our leaders.
Yeah, do where you want to go.
Go home. You are no longer an army.
Because the Russian army.
Because the Russians came over here, they disbanded our army, and they are replacing you.
So was there any talk between the officer corps or your colleagues of?
There was a talk of resistance, but they would wipe us out overnight. They would wipe us out. We were tiny little Czechoslovakia fighting mighty Russia. No. And that's what they were waiting for. They were waiting for that to see some armed resistance. They would wipe us out. 2 million people killed for tiny country like that. They would do it. So they just said the best thing to do is to prevent casualties, just go home. Everybody goes home. No army. We have no army. People cried and all that.
How did you feel about that?
No, I cried. Everybody cried. I mean, once you taste this freedom of talking, freedom of expression, my God, all of a sudden in a few months we had that. So you get drunk, you get, you have hangover from that, and now all of a sudden, no more. So when they sent us home, the Russian Soviets kidnapped our government, took them to Russia for indoctrination. They came back about a week later. And all of a sudden we signed an agreement for next 25 years with our brothers, Soviets. So Igor says, no, I'm not going to live. Once I tasted this freedom, I'm not going to live under that anymore. So I escaped.
How did you escape?
Long way around through I had no passport. So the only way west was going east. So we forged some papers and we bought some train tickets to Bulgaria because to travel to Bulgaria at that time was allowed in 1968. So we bought tickets train tickets to Bulgaria, knowing that we are going to go through, the only way to go there is through Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was communist, but not Stalinist, not the bloc of the Soviets. They were independent socialists and communists. So we said the only way west was going to go through Yugoslavia. So in Beograd, we jumped out of the train.
How many of you?
Two of us. Two of us.
Touch with them?
One of them, no.
With them, it's you and just another guy.
Another guy, right?
No, just
Two of us. Yeah. We were three, actually, but that's a long story. Yeah. So we jumped out of the train. Now the soldiers, the Yugoslav soldiers, they knew that there would be always attempts to jump out of the train. So they were there standing on the station at the platform with machine guns and discouraging. But we just jumped and ran, and we felt bullets flying. I don't know.
Really?
Oh yeah, real bullets.
Dodge bullets to get out of Czechoslovakia.
Right. Now, so my first barrier was to climb a huge hill of coal for the trains. So we were climbing, and that's not easy. It's like climbing a sand dune, And we were going down more than 2 steps down. But finally, when we went over the top of that mount of coal and rolled down back, can you imagine how dirty we were? Black. And now, next step was we already were planned out. Next step, somehow walk through entire Yugoslavia to go to Austria.
How long did that take?
That took about a month.
With no passport?
No passport,
Where'd you
no
sleep? What'd you eat? Who'd you meet?
parks, streets, but
sometimes people were giving you.
now in Beograd the people were not nice. I don't have good memories of Beograd, but somehow we made it to Zagreb, which is Croatia.
Maybe do some physical
We
work.
walked, we hitchhiked, we rode trains, whatever. And we made it to Zagreb, and the moment they heard where we're from, they took us in. Go, take shower, wash yourself. They fed us. We drank Slivovitz, and they treat us very well. So we know what it means to be oppressed by somebody, because Croatians felt they were oppressed by the Serbs. Then Yugoslavia was a country of nations of 7 nationalities, and so the Croatians were super nice to us. They gave us food, money they didn't have like us, and good luck. So we went. We actually walked to the sea. First time ever I saw a sea, Adriatic Sea, green, blue, clear, well, beautiful.
That's why we're dreaming now to take a trip along Adriatic Sea.
I was
I've never seen.
I was splashing around. Oh, sea, salty water got into my nose and ears and throat, and I don't care. But then, it was already October,
You were.
and we knew that we had to cross the Alps. And October and Alps mean snow already. So we said, hey, his name was Milan. I said, we gotta go. I mean, we could be splashing around in the ocean forever, but we gotta go, because once it starts snowing heavily, we'll never cross. So we took a route over to the Alps, Slovenia, which is the bordering country now with Austria.
So you were heading to Austria?
We were heading towards Austrian border, through Slovenia, through Ljubljana. And, you see the Alps ahead of you, looming ahead. We had only clothes what we left the country with. And so we started climbing. I said, Milan, I was the geographic mind. He had no idea east, west. I had everything mapped out. I knew exactly what direction to go, how high, how. I said, all we have to do, climb the Alps and come down on the other side, that's all. And how do we know where we are? I was hugging a river. I forgot the name of it, but I was hugging that river as we were climbing. I always made sure that we eventually will see the river again. I said, once we reach some kind of peak or something or height, and we start going down, I know we must be in Austria. but a river. I always look down. There was tiny little ribbon. That's all it was, a ribbon. But it was already snowing.
But there was a border there, and
Well, we crossed the border. We saw some guards, but I didn't know whether they were Slovenian, Yugoslav guards, or whether they were Austrian guards. I didn't know. We saw them in distance. So we just made our way through over there and started going down. I felt we going down, not because, I mean, it could have been a valley, but I already felt that we are really on our way down from the Alps. You look at the trees, you look at the vegetation, you see that it's different. Once you start seeing leaves, you know you are going down. Otherwise, it's all coniferous. And eventually now we came to a road, darkness already. And my friend the river was there, gurgling. I said, you know what, we have to be in Austria. So we came down to the road and we peeked around and we began to see cars with a big W. Vienna.
Right.
We are in Austria, so we started hitchhiking. And actually, it was dark already, cold, and say, if we're going to sleep in snow, I don't know how we're going to survive. But a guy stopped, Volkswagen Beetle, and I knew few German words. And, you know, ich bin ein Ausländer.
Right.
And
You don't know what town this was in Austria?
there was no town. No, it was just a road.
village.
It was right, not even that. It was just mountains, road, and the river. There was no town. But a guy was returning from somewhere, I don't remember where, and he said, I'm going to Vienna, 400 kilometers. And we made it. 3 a.m., we were in...
so he took you.
He took us. We were lucky. I mean, imagine what the way we looked. Haggard, probably looked like bums. And he stopped. He said, I said, nach Vienna, to Vienna. He said, okay, hop in.
That's amazing.
We told him where we were, who we were, and all. I said, oh, don't worry. So the thing to do when you come to Vienna is to seek out a police and say, I am an Ausländer. Ausländer means refugee.
Refuge.
And at that time, the price, Austrians were a neutral country. That was the price they paid for Russians to leave them, because Soviets were occupying Austria after World War II.
Oh, yeah. Birthplace of Hitler.
Right. And Austrians were heavy duty Nazis. So we came to 3 a.m., 4 a.m., we came to Vienna, we seeked up police, arrest us, they put us into jail, gave us coffee, coffee, warm coffee. No, it wasn't coffee from coffee beans. It was coffee from roasted barley. That was burnt black roasted barley.
But for you, probably.
Oh my God! But it was with sugar, and it was with little milk, and it was hot. Ooh, the greatest smelling and tasting coffee I ever had until now.
That's amazing. How old were you during this journey?
1968. So I had to be
21.
21.
Just 21.
Did you tell your parents you were leaving?
No, I couldn't.
He couldn't communicate.
No, I could communicate, but I couldn't tell them that. They would never, first of all, I didn't have father. My parents were divorced. So mom, I could not possibly tell her, hey mom, I'm going to West. Now,
Who knows where?
West for people meant Austria/Germany. For me, West meant only one, America. That was America, that was it for me. I'm gonna get there if I have to swim the Atlantic.
Wow.
And I did.
That's an amazing story.
So they put me to, the reason the police arrest you in these countries is to make sure they check with Interpol that you are not internationally wanted. And then they ship you to a concentration camp. So I spent 6 months in a concentration camp.
It wasn't a concentration camp, like, let's say,
Well, not labor camp.
in the war.
Concentration meaning all the refugees holding camp. But they called it that.
Refugee camp. Yeah, it's more.
And the guards were treating us terribly over there. you know, there were still the remnants of Nazism and all that, and they mistreated us.
So you stayed there 6 months?
6 months.
Doing what? Not any labor, nothing?
You were not allowed to work, but I was sneaking out and I was working. I already was capitalist. I started working labor, you know, moving bricks, cleaning snow. And
just offering your...
Offering. I would go knock to, you know, do you need any kind of help? Anything, I'll do. And there were people were constructing. I said, bring this, bring that, and clean my snow, clean the ice. And I would be buying cigarettes and selling them in the camp.
Yeah, it was enterprise.
I already was capital. Oh, it didn't take too long. And in spite of the suppression, the communists really were suppressing any kind of free enterprise, free thinking. But that's human nature. So in the concentration camp, there were tiny offices with one room and one window of representative from different countries who would be accepting refugees. So for example, there would be South Africa who would say, we want only people who know something about horses.
Really?
Yeah. Because Czechoslovakia was known for Clydesdale horses. So were the Chileans and Argentinians. They say, hey, we want 50 people who know something about Clydesdale horses. And people died, you know. Oh, sure, I was riding one, you know, go, come on. So, and they would give them educational programs. They would feed them for 6 months, house them for 6 months,
English.
study Spanish, English, whatever the country. Sweden would be offering something like that. And people, and in immediate transport, 2-3 days later, and I said, Igor, you're not going to be lazy. No. You want America. America said 6 months, minimum. So I stayed 6 months. I had to go to Vienna. That was 20 kilometers. Vienna was from Traiskirchen. The name of the camp and village was Traiskirchen. 3 churches. That's what it means. And I would be walking to Vienna. I had no money for train. So I walked 20 kilometers to Vienna. I went to the embassy, applied, responded to everything they wanted, fill out applications, interviews, and go back. So I would come back 2 weeks later, anything, not yet, go back. And so finally they would tell me in February, okay, you're flying in March, I think it was, early March. So they put me to airplane in Vienna. I landed in New York. They gave me $5 bill. They gave me a paper green card. And they drove me to a hotel near Times Square for 3 nights. I had paid room for 3 months.
For 3 nights?
3 nights. I thought it said 3 months. 3 nights. There was a hotel for refugees and prostitutes. And you know, the girls would come to me and say, yeah, right, I have $5 here. You know? But the $5 went very quickly. But you know what? I could buy 3 hot dogs. 3 hot dogs, Coca-Cola, a burger. So the $5 lasted about a day. But then they gave me address of a place where I could go and look for a job. Some kind of manpower, I don't remember the terms. And there was somewhere on 42nd Street or some in that area. And so I would go there. They gave me a map, an address, go. You're going to have a job. They made phone calls, you're going to have a job. I said, where is it? Yeah, I have to go over the bridge, da-da-da. Now I know it was Greenpoint, Queens.
Oh, interesting.
So I walked across 59th Street Bridge. I showed the map to some people locally. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, it was a Polish neighborhood, so I was actually bumped into some Polish people.
Yeah, even now it's Polish.
Yeah. So turn left, turn right. There was a factory where they were making receptacles and electrical outlets and that kind of stuff. So take your jacket off, put your clothes on. I said, well, this is all I have. And get on assembly line. So in 1 hour, I was covered with oil. And so back to the hotel. But I already had some contacts because that was the thing in the camp. Exchange information, exchange and write. The moment you come, write. So I had an address on 181st. So I walked up there. Three guys were living together. He said, hey, come on, Igor, in, you know. I waited for my first paycheck.
181st, was the place.
Washington Heights. Yeah.
My first place when I came, 181st.
That's crazy. And you didn't know each other.
No, a few years apart.
No.
This was destiny.
When we found out where we lived, and later in New York, when Igor was married and I was married, we lived in Queens, practically a couple of blocks from each other.
So we were always skirting around.
Yeah, and I always say that nobody knows the real reason why Russia invaded Czechoslovakia in '68. Because to get Igor out of there to America, and then in '74...
She mobilized the army to kick me out of the country.
I love that.
So I waited like, there is, like the second coming of Jesus Christ. Friday was a payday, my first paycheck. Ooh, wow. $70. Do you know how rich man I felt? $70. I could take a subway because I couldn't ride subways. I had no money for subway. So finally I could take subway. It was only 25 cents or something.
Even when I came,
25 cents subway.
25 cents.
There were tokens. They don't have tokens.
Even when I came in '74, were tokens for many years after that.
So now I could ride subway. I could buy myself a gallon of milk. Gallon of milk was under $1. I bought a whole chicken. I don't know, 70 cents. $70 went a long way those days, really. I couldn't spend it that day. Of course, I had to buy a gallon of wine. Gallo. You remember that company, Gallo?
Sure.
That was a gallon of wine was as expensive as gallon of milk, I think, $1.20 or something. So America was a great country. After 1 week, that's it. That's all it took. 1 week, I was a rich man. Next paycheck, whoa,
That's amazing. So have you been back to
Yes.
Slovakia?
Yes. I could not go back while communism lasted, because I was declared traitor. Publicly, they would condemn me to some, 15 years of hard labor. So I couldn't go back until communism fell. And it did in 1991.
Wow.
So that was the first time I went back.
Did your mother ever come here?
Yes. I brought her, my grandmother too. I brought them over here.
As tourists.
For them, the first trip out of the country was New York. Boom,
That's crazy.
My mother absolutely adored America, absolutely adored it. My grandmother didn't because she didn't like the food.
So your grandmother was Slovak?
Yes, both. And when my grandmother was leaving, after I had them here for 6 months, when my grandmother was leaving, she said, Igor, thank you very much for the trip. Now I can die. And she did.
She saw next year.
Yeah.
She saw America. Yeah, we are, you see, only us immigrants can be, not only, but we are very patriotic about this country. This country not perfect, not ideal. Nothing and nobody in this world is ideal. But this is the best country to live in. If you try hard enough, you will make it. Maybe you will not become a millionaire or...
First paycheck. Now, school, that was the next thing for me. I gotta go to school because I could not work these kind of jobs. I was cleaning toilets, I was working in warehouses and all that. So this is not the way to go. So I actually applied for a computer class. Why computer? I don't know. I don't remember why. There was no such a thing as a computer science, computer industry, none of that. Computers existed already. IBM already was big. But it was very inaccessible. It was not just, like you go to Apple store and buy a computer or learn it, So I attended some night classes where they were teaching this stuff. And I didn't speak English, that was the thing. But I understood already. And I think that was the greatest thing I had done in America, to be lucky enough to bump into this computer idea. And it grew. It came to a point I got a great job with Bankers Trust. It doesn't exist anymore.
Bankers.
Then I started going to school at Hunter College, computer science, and that opened the door.
That was in the 70s.
70s.
And this is before you came in 74.
Yeah, by that time he was married.
In 1975 or so, I already was married. I finished my school.
Your son was born in 75.
Right.
Yeah, I came in 74.